When I became an adult, I went back to liking it again, and a bit of a tug of war type of thing, really. In the UK, Dick Spanner has had a bit of a tumultuous DVD journey. It first came out on DVD in 2007 by a company called Pickwick, and they made a lot of changes to it. They cropped the picture so it was 16:9. They changed some of the sound effects as well. And in the case of the Maltese Parrot, when Dick Spanner and Pearl Black are on the railroad tracks and she's screaming, in the Pickwick DVD, they used a very feminine scream. So then when I watched the original version a few years later, and then you hear what is basically a man screaming.
Pearl Black was doing all the hollering, but I was going to get it first.
Jesus, I did not expect that.
I love that scene, just for the aesthetic of it. Oh, if only that went into a better story.
The Hood is not very good at disguises because he disguises himself as Dr. Grant, and then Scott goes to check on Grant and Pierce. Now, Pierce, his dialogue implies that he knows that Dr. Grant is an imposter when he says, fine, everything's fine, and then he says to Scott, he's got a gun. So clearly the Hood has already been discovered. They may have human characteristics, but they are still aliens. Could it be that there's like that distance as far as connecting to them?
Nah, I could have watched a show of aliens. That wasn't the problem.
Right.
It's just no one there I liked. I really wanted to like her, and I didn't like her.
Pardon the pun.
I think she enjoys playing this charade of being this beautiful British aristocrat, and in reality is she's doing something way more exciting.
Well, as you've cosplayed as Lady Penelope, but you've also cosplayed as another Penelope known for getting in peril, Penelope Pitstop. If you had to pick one of them to save, who would it be?
That's just me. And I love both of the characters equally. They're both... Can't I just say both of them?
No.
Help! Help!
The Perils of Penelope Pitstop. Starring those 7 rollicking rescuers, the Anthill Mob, their courageous car Chug-a-Boom, and that villain of villains, the Hooded Claw. Penelope Pitstop, heiress to a vast fortune, is in perpetual peril from her fortune-seeking guardian, Sylvester Sneakley, who, unknown to her, is really the Hooded Claw. But foiling this fiend's foul plots are Penelope's ever-present protectors, the Anthill Mob.
I'll get you, Penelope Pitstop.
You're making this impossible for me. I would think, knowing that Virgil saves Lady Penelope, I would go with Penelope Pitstop in that instance.
That's a good way of getting out of that. Okay. I think it ties in well with From Here to Infinity, when Einstein says to Hero, I think it was a mistake to allow Zeroids to have human characteristics. So I think they covered themselves on that one. But this episode, even though it was written by Tony Bowick, is actually credited as Shakespearstein. What do you make of the pun names, the pseudonyms that Tony Bowick came up with for these? Most of them are just lame.
As much as I do like puns, some of them are not brilliant.
Especially with early Terrorhawks that we both agree was better than Silly Terrorhawks. But the fact is that Jerry Anson's real name was used for the first 2 episodes. But then the moment Tony Bowick took over from episode 3, it was always pseudonyms. And I just think it's inconsistent with, at that point, where the tone was to be very serious and quite dark, to suddenly have a silly name there. Just when it became a comedy later on, yes, it matches the tone, fair enough, but it doesn't match the early episodes. So I always wondered why they did that, because there's only one episode where Tony Bowick's real name was used, and that was The Midas Touch, and that's only because he co-wrote it with Trevor Lansdowne. Another thing that annoyed me was it turned out that Donald James, who wrote for Joe 90 and UFO, and he co-wrote Doppelganger, it turned out he wrote From Here to Infinity and The Spirilla, but for the longest time I didn't know, because I always thought it was just Tony Bowick. And this is the occasion where if we didn't use these stupid names, I would get to know who wrote what. But it's, yeah, just something silly.